Divorce lawyers of Reddit, what's the most screwed you've seen someone? I used to be a divorce lawyer, but it was not something I was proud of. Plus the partner I worked for was such an asshole. I was the 11th associate that worked for her in 10 years. We used to go through 2-3 secretaries a year. Couple screwed up cases I remember. Our client and his wife were Mormon. During the divorce she used to tell him that he had to give her what she wanted in the divorce because they were sealed in the church and would be spending eternity together. We had to fight him not to give her more than she deserved. Represented the wife of a minor celebrity and said celebrity would file for divorce regularly when she acted up. Once he determined she was behaving as he liked, he's cancelled the divorce. Rotten bastard. My mother divorced my dad when I was like 2 years old. They had bought a house together and my dad's family offered her fair value to buy the house from her. She denied the offer and puts it up for sale publicly. My dad's family buys it for 40% less than what they offered my mom in a public bidding auction. Husband and wife are getting divorced after multiple attempts to reconcile. Husband is an attorney, though not family law. One of the attempted reconciliations includes wife losing some weight and sending husband some SI naked pictures. Once divorce litigation started, husband sent these pictures to wife's minister father asking if he knew what he raised. During litigation, husband also drove around at night with their 2 small children in the car to find wife's car at a friend's house and pour airplane acid. Yeah. Apparently it's a thing. All over wife's hood. I've worked as a legal assistant for 2 family law attorneys for the last 8 years. One of the cases that made me the angriest was a man who cheated on his wife when she had cancer. He then leaves his wife and attempts to hide all his assets while she's undergoing chemotherapy. Fortunately, my boss is a badass. She teamed up with a forensic accountant and they took him to the cleaners. He even had to pay the forensic accountant's bill and attorney's fees. One of my father's friends tried to salt the earth before getting divorced. A rental house and a cabin were deeded to relatives. The cars they drove every day were sold to other relatives for tiny sums. Stocks handed over to a trust for the children, etc. He even vanished a chunk of cash from the company he co-owned with his wife using phony invoices and stopped paying himself a salary, electing to burn through their personal savings for over a year instead. He learned that judges really hate when you try to hide or intentionally diminish assets. And they will absolutely refer you to prosecutors for fraud. I don't think he did any jail time in the end. But his ex-wife got everything. Plus the satisfaction of firing him from his own company. Not a lawyer, but I knew a guy who lost his own cell phone number. He had the same number since high school. But she convinced the judge that she used his phone enough to get his number. Basically he kept his clothes and car and had to pay alimony. Friend of mine is a divorce lawyer. His favorite is the time the husband in a bitter divorce got some slimy lawyer and said he would out-lawyer her and break the bank before giving her anything she wanted. This was in front of my friend, her lawyer. He looks at her and says, "I'm working for you pro bono, free, from this moment forward." My favorite divorce story of all time. My buddy meets girl, gets married, la-di-da. 6 months later, she runs off with another dude. After a couple months my buddy filed for divorce. He told her, "Listen, we've been married 6 months. Let's do an uncontested divorce since you haven't worked or anything. And I own everything and did before I met you." She puts up a fight. And eventually comes to, "I had a car coming into this marriage and I'm leaving with one." She sold her car for some dumb. He offers her the truck. 10 years old with 150k miles. But meticulously maintained. She said nope. So off to court they go. She got zip. Nada. Empty-handed. On my year abroad in the US I took a domestic relations class ran by an ex-judge who told us a few good ones. The first one was a couple who gathered their entire stuffed toy collection and split them in court, each taking turns to pick. He said they weren't even collectibles. A lot of cheap ones you'd get at the fair. My favorite is where both parties were both being unreasonable and not thinking of the kids. In the end he awarded the house to the kids who would permanently live there and the parents who had joint custody would take it in turns to live there. His argument was that the kids' lives should take priority. Best thing was neither party could afford to buy an additional place on their own, so the couple had to rent a small flat together and also share that. Pretty badass judge in my opinion. My parents got divorced when I was 12. I am sketchy on the details, but I remember it was long, drawn out and acrimonious. Eventually, my mum was awarded a massive settlement. My dad was basically left with superannuation and nothing else. After the ruling was handed down, my mother's own lawyer walked into my father and his lawyer's meeting and said that ruling was bull. You should appeal. Gotta be pretty bad when a lawyer wants his own win overturned. Edit. He didn't appeal. He was a bit broken by that point and just wanted to move on. Sorry for lack of detail. I was 12. It was some time ago. My dad told me the story years later. Gotta be pretty bad when a lawyer wants his own win overturned. Well, the lawyer will get paid twice as much by too long and drawn out court battles, no matter what the second ruling is. Not an attorney but work in family law. My favorite is the man who accidentally texted his family group chat with a message meant for his mistress. An accountant. Not a lawyer. I had a buddy. A good guy. But he thought with the wrong head. Divorced one woman. Fell into relationship with this bimbo blonde who messed around on him. They had started a business together but all the designs were his. She wanted the designs. I went in as his witness and testified about the amount of money they had invested and that yes, the designs had all existed before the marriage as I had helped him set it up. Well, they spent months fighting about it. Her attorney was a crook. $35,000 each in legal bills. Both filed bankruptcy and guess what? He got the designs and business, but had to sell his house and leave town. Of course got married again. Got taken again. Then number 4 had 3 kids and she screwed him too. Some people never learn. He is almost 60 with 3 kids under 10. Not a lawyer, but a dramatic divorce story. I know a man who was falsely accused of domestic violence during the separation from his wife. She lived in the marital home and he paid for everything for her despite her having a full-time job. She got a boyfriend who didn't work and allowed him to live in the house. My friend went to meet her at the house for a final time to decide who would take what from the house. He was recording everything on his phone without her knowledge as he was afraid something would be said or happen that might be held against him. They couldn't agree. He left and found out she had called 911 and reported that he had made death threats and assaulted her. The divorce went downhill from there. He spent $14,000 on lawyers to finally have the charges dismissed. During his criminal ordeal she sued him for $250,000 in alimony. The recording saved him with the police and to this day she insists he assaulted her. An unbelievable show. Ex-wife got the whole damn planet in the divorce. All I've got left is my bones. On the positive side, he's apparently been doing really well lately. So good for him. Not a divorce lawyer, but my sister and her family was a second-hand victim of one. Place they were renting was owned by a couple who were going through a less than amicable divorce. Went to court 3 times over the settlement and by the 4th time the judge ordered that all their assets they acquired over their marriage, 2 houses and 3 cars, were all to be liquidated and be split 50/50. During my dad's recent divorce of my stepmom, he voluntarily gave her the house, 2 of 3 cars, and most of the assets. He only wished to take his mechanic's tools, personal items, and some necessities like clothes, towels, some dishes and cooking utensils, etc. My stepmother demanded in court that he reimburse her monetarily for all of these items, to include the 6 towels he had taken with him, which he had apparently valued at $1,000. When the judge heard this after being informed that my dad had basically voluntarily given her about 85% of his net worth, he had to hide a laugh when he said that no, he would not be requiring my dad to pay $1,000 for 6 Walmart brand bath towels. My dad is a retired lawyer, not a divorce lawyer. But he knows judges. He got this story from a judge. Semicolon. Man, lawyer. Actually, and woman divorce. Somewhat unhappily. They have kids. Woman gets custody with man having visitation. Woman apparently does not like that man divorced her and takes parental alienation as her goal in life. Semicolon. So far so terrible. Right? Man takes woman to court over this. Woman actually ends up in jail for contempt more than once. Apparently they'd let her out and she'd go back to her prime goal in life. Convincing her kids to hate her ex. Semicolon. Judge, who told this story to my dad, finally tells man I can throw her back in jail as many times as you want. But there's no winner in this. I'm paraphrasing. It's been a few years since dad told me this story. Semicolon. Dad didn't know the rest of the story, but seriously. The most screwed in that divorce were the poor children. Ian L. But I remember my friend's mom's divorce from her second marriage. I guess there is a rule where if an attorney has interacted with party A in a suit, they can't offer services to party B. So my friend's mom called every divorce lawyer within a 100-mile radius and essentially boxed her ex out of a lot of decent representation within a reasonable driving range. That is a good way to get to really head off judge if it ever comes to light that you intentionally did something like this. Not a lawyer but saw the whole scene unfold. Dad had a neighbor who divorced her absolute D-bag husband. Cheating. Name calling. Everything was on the table for this guy. Together they had 2 little boys and she was super mom. Seriously, she loved those kids more than life itself. The husband made all the money though. And when he realized she had no assets to take, he went for the only thing she had left. The children. He took her to court over and over and over until she couldn't afford the legal fees anymore, then argued that she couldn't afford to care for the children. He took her kids out of spite. Bought them everything they ever could want after the divorce and generally let them do whatever they wanted. When the boys found out they were living with their dad, they cheered. That sweet woman was left with absolutely nothing, all because she dared divorce the Thai husband that didn't pay attention to her in the first place. Not a divorce lawyer, but there's this security guard that works at the mall my friend works at, and he immigrated to the US from India and was in an arranged marriage with this American-born Indian girl. He busted his ass off to put her through college and dentistry school, and she ended up cheating on him with her ex-boyfriend from high school and ran off with him. They didn't get divorced, but he's still paying off her school loans. My ex left me for another guy. Was with her for 7 years. NPT, married and no kids. She came after me for half value, approx $250k, of my house I had purchased. Her and her lawyer ended up with $1,500 a year as they continuously took the going through court. I know a guy who got a prominent position in our community and ended up cheating on his wife and deciding to leave her. He's insanely popular until what he's done to his wife is exposed. She files for divorce and he decides to give her everything. I assume hoping to get everything over quickly and have people move on. Not so. Ends up losing his position the next cycle and has nothing at all but his car. He had given his wife millions of dollars in real estate, equipment, owned a construction co, massive savings accounts, stocks, bonds, etc. just to try to save face. After losing his position, he tried to appeal his divorce. Not a lawyer. But I was on jury duty recently for a child abuse case of an 8-year-old girl. It was trying to determine whether the injuries were the result of abuse and excessive force or simply a spanking that resulted in injuries. It was the last day of a trial that had gone on for 3 days. There was definitely some reasonable doubt and the jurors were divided between guilty and not guilty. Final witness was the alleged abuser, who wasn't required to testify, but did. He was asked about the outcome of his CYFD case, to which he laughed and replied, "Which one?" The man had 27 CYFD cases against him for abuse and neglect, and had even had his kids temporarily fostered at one time. He then bragged about getting them back, and that he had not been found guilty in any of his previous cases. Needless to say, the guilty verdict was unanimous. Edit. JFC. Did I just not read the word divorce? Or was it added later? I guess my reading comprehension is lacking tonight. Not a divorce lawyer, but my old boss got thrown in jail for missing divorce court. I live in a small town that has court every second and fourth Thursdays. If there is no court and you're detained, you get hauled 4 hours to the closest city. Guy got arrested while having lunch with his 6-year-old son and taken to the remand center for a night. When he finally saw the judge said to his ex-wife, "Please don't waste my time on something like this again." Then she drove him 4 hours home while he reamed her out. Lawyer here. I had a client who was the cleanest cut of the clean. Think of the nicest, most innocent, stable guy you can think of. I only take clients based off their initial few weeks of behavior and background check. He was basically goddamn Mr. Rogers. No criminal record. Same company for 20 years. Great character references that were proven. Then the client went and got not 1 but 2 DUIs and an assault charge. Then he committed suicide. I know he didn't want me to get stuck with no money and hordes of paperwork. I think I'm a nicer guy, but sometimes I wonder. Ian Elbert, a friend of mine, recently divorced with his wife after finding out she had 2 different BF on top of her Saturday girls' night out were really just hooking up with Tinder dates. Semicolon. So yeah, she was the most screwed. By different men. On a weekly basis. Oh well, isn't this thread gonna be just chock full of rainbows and happiness? Any child who has to live through that. My parents divorced relatively amicably when I was 13 and my sisters were 11 and 7. Life got a load better immediately, and 15 years on we all agree that it was for the best. A split family is infinitely better than an unhappy dysfunctional family. Till didn't get married. Whoa. An Reddit post with more upvotes than comments. This is rare. My favorite I've seen a few times. I'll tell the best one. Lady marries super rich dude I know. He owns lots of properties. His parents set him up. The one by the beach makes $24,000 a month. 8 years later she wants a divorce. They have 2 kids. She says she will take the beach house. This is when he tells her he owned all of his property before they met. She got $5,000 a month for 2 years. He and his new girlfriend travel and party 24/7 when they are hanging with their kids. His girlfriend is such a better fit. Same thing happened to another good guy friend of mine. So she got screwed over. 8 years. 2 kids, and he gave her very little comparatively. I upvotes this even though there aren't comments because it's a great question. However, if no divorce lawyers see this one in a day or two, try reposting it. My dad got shafted on every divorce. First one was alimony and child support for 22 years. Second one was child support for my brother and I. Both of us were for 22 years. Third one got half of everything: home, vacation homes, savings, cars, art, the whole 9, and alimony for a year. The fourth one, he is just buying another home with her now, so we will see how this one goes. Why does your dad have so many failed marriages? He has 3 divorces. Either he has an issue with who he is picking, and or he is not a very good husband. I don't think it's the getting married at all that's an issue, the way another poster said. Plenty of people make marriage work. All the ones I know who didn't tend to be on their second marriage only. Don't actually know anyone with more than 2. No disrespect meant, but your dad is an asshole for continuing to get married, lol. Lawyer here. Attorney-client privilege. Sorry. Dot. You could have made something up like some of the other posters. I'm not a divorce lawyer. I'm not divorced. I don't have many stakes in this post. I have nothing to add to this conversation, but hell if I don't get involved. I'm not a fan. But my car has a fan belt. In my country, lawyer. Attorney and advocate are three separate professions. I am a lawyer. Husband and wife was 50/50 in business. But unbeknownst to us, the husband gave one extra share to his wife. We have a law called Black Economic Empowerment, where female are worth more points than males. He did it to win tenders. Anyway. Fast forward a year. He is caught having an affair. She wants a divorce. And the attorneys stumble on the 51% shareholding. So she can make all the decisions. Within a week she sells everything. Their house in the city. Their vacation place in Mauritius. Their game farm. Everything. He gets his 49% of the profits. But she sold it for less than 10% of its value. To an unknown trust. Later it came out the trust was her attorney's setup. She sold it to herself for nothing. Gave him nothing. Bought it back and has all their stuff now. How does anyone do business in your country if a majority partner can shaft the minority partners by selling interests to a trust and buying them back while only paying the minority partners a pittance of their actual value? She took half the credit card debt. Her car, on a lease. Left me my truck and the house that was too much for me on my own. We kept our own 401k accounts. And I quit claim any rights to her trust fund inheritance. I barely held on to the house. But made it work. Sold the truck and bought a motorcycle. She inherited enough to semi-retire by 45. But I still own the house. Worth 6x what I bought it for. I'm happily married to a woman I met 18 years ago and she's alone. I'll retire early overseas. If things work out as expected. She slept with her boss after 18 months married. I hope she dies alone. Thankfully, my divorce attorney is deceased. So I don't have to worry about reliving that nightmare by reading it on Reddit. I'm certain it would be the top comment. My divorce attorney is deceased. Damn. Your ex drives a hard bargain. Friend's mum. She was a trophy wife. Popped 4 kids to a successful man. Separated at 35. No divorce. Conned into not divorcing, all that jazz. Dude's worth 20 odd million. All the property hidden behind murky corporate structures. Dude stopped working so as to say he had no income. Convinced her to sell her house, but she was too ditzy to understand that he was part owner and found herself without a house and requiring rent for 4 kids. She eventually was divorced. She received a 100k settlement. She took no one's advice other than her husband's. She thought it was better for the kids. It's kind of out how it went down and how he lives waterfront and sails his yacht in the big races and she's broken and destitute basically. But on the other hand, as I mentioned, trophy wife. The woman is dumb. 99% of the time the Forrest Gumps of the world get taken advantage of. Opposite story. After 20 plus years of marriage and 2 kids. Wife and I want to get divorced. I tell her not to get a lawyer but instead let's go together to a mediator. We have a very cooperative and happy divorce. I'm not a divorce lawyer. I'm just here to read these responses. Jesus H. Christ on toast. Some people are stupid bastards. Aren't they? Not a lawyer. But second-hand divorce story. But you didn't have any responses yet. So. Military. Friend of mine was planning on getting out after 12ish years. Getting a divorce. Final on the divorce basically forces him to stay in the Navy for 20 so his soon-to-be ex-wife can get half of the pension. He doesn't necessarily have to retire. But if he doesn't, he would be required to pay her half of what he would have gotten if he retired at his current grade. So yeah. Forced to retire. That can't be legal. You can't get alimony based on future expectations. And she would only get half if they were married for 10 years or more during his active service.